Good evening, everyone. This is Rabbi Yehoshua Sova from sunny South Florida here at Echad Radio. Please look at our platform, echadradio.com, Spotify, YouTube, all the wonderful channels that are out there and platforms that are there. We'd like to thank Lucas and Jonathan, all the people behind the scenes doing their magic, as well as the amazing DJ Shaq from Radio Echad. This is an unbelievable platform. We ask you to join, and in any way that you can, try to show your support. Sponsorships, of course, are available. If anyone would like to do that, we'd greatly appreciate that as well. And we'd like to thank all the people throughout the world that are listening to the Zera Shimshon, who is a tremendous source, a wellspring of tremendous bracha, blessing, and source of hatzlacha for all people that are looking for good things. So I'd like to share with you this evening 2 ideas from this week's Parsha, Parshas Truma, and hopefully, Mitzvah Shem, you'll be as inspired as I am. The Medrash tells us, "V'yichchu li truma." The pasuk tells us, "You will take from me truma and give this offering as a gift to Hashem." Presumably, this is a gift that you're going to give to the Mishkan. Hashem is going to utilize that now towards the services of the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Medrash on that pasuk, "V'yichchu li truma." The Torah was specific when he used the word likach, to take. Why? Like it tells us in the Torah, "Ki lekach tov nasati lechem." I gave you a great lekach. Lekach is a lesson or some type of ability to acquire an item. So you should know this is something that you're acquiring. This is really good. Nasati lechem. I gifted it to you. Torasi, my Torah, al tazevu. Do not disembark from it. You should make sure that Torah is something that's central to your lives. So ask the Zera Shimshon, what does that have to do with anything? We're talking about here giving a truma to the Beis HaMikdash, and we're assuming that the only connection between the two really is the word kach, to take. What does that mean that when you take v'yichchu li truma, that has an association to Torah? What does anything have to do with one another? One's talking about giving monetary gifts to the Beis HaMikdash, to the Mishkan, for service of Karbanas Tzibur, for that of some obligatory offerings for everyone else. And we're not talking about specifically Torah study. So what does one have to do with the other than the fact that you have this hyperlink between a word that says likach, to take, and also this idea of lekach, also to take? There seems to be no connection between the two. Says Zera Shimshon, an unbelievable, very powerful line. He says, when it comes to Torah study, specifically, a person has to approach it that likach, I want to take. I want to be a Talmid Chacham. I want to be someone who's knowledgeable. I want to know as much as I can, as much ground that I could cover before the ground covers me. That is what I want to achieve in life. I want to be somebody that is as knowledgeable as possible, that there can be no question that I tried my best. He said when a person has that mindset that they want to be a taker, someone that just wants to take and take and take, ultimately what will happen is Hashem sees you're serious about this commitment, then v'nosati. Then Hashem will make sure that He will gift it to you, because He sees that you are desiring, you really want that close, intimate connection with Hashem. The only way you could go to Hashem is through His knowledge. And what's that? Through Torah. True, you have mitzvahs, and true, you have tzedakah, true, you have chesed, true, you have all these wonderful things. But if you want to get to the core of understanding how I can connect myself to Hashem, that is through limud Torah, through learning Torah as well. Because if you don't have limud Torah, if you don't know what it is that you need to know, ultimately you're going to just be a bore, and you're not going to know that you're going to miss on so many opportunities in life. Can you imagine if somebody understood, they could literally understand the wealth of knowledge that there is out there for the world, and they choose to ignore it? Ignorance is not bliss, it's numbing. And you have to recognize that, and you have to see that when a person understands that they have a knowledge base and they have a desire to want to be knowledgeable, ultimately what will happen is Hashem will respond and actually gift it to you. How do we know that? It says, V'yichchu li truma. You'll give for me a truma, says Hashem. What happens when you give the truma? What's going to be? Oh, you're going to get a Mishkan. You're going to see open manifestation of God's presence in this world. Hashem is here because you took the first step. You showed a desire that you want to give, and you're willing to commit and gift something because you want that now, palpable and touchable, something that you could feel and move. That item that you have, you literally could touch it. Hashem says, I'm going to give you something that you could feel and touch because you showed commitment to that. And therefore, ki lekach tov, you should know the same thing for Torah as well. If a person sits down and wants to learn, it may be difficult in the beginning. Rabbi Akiva, at the age of 40, decided to learn Aleph Beis. He could have been ridiculed and everyone made fun of him, but he decided he wanted to do it. When a person shows commitment, it takes that small step for man, it's really a giant leap for his spiritual kind. It's something that's going to make a quantum leap for a person that's going to be unbelievable. And I'd like to share a few stories with you that show you that when you show unbridled commitment, that I show Hashem, I want it. Please, Hashem, allow me to be from those people that understand your will, and I'm completely locked into you. And when a person does that, they're going to see tremendous success in whatever it is that they want. The first story I'd like to share with you was with a very big tzaddik who lived in Bnei Brak. His name was Reb Shmuel Vosner. Reb Vosner lived, I believe, to the age of 104, passed away on the first night of Pesach. He was known to be a tremendous Talmid Chacham, sweet like sugar, but if he had to stand up for what was right, he stood up for what was right. And the story goes is that they say that he was an only child growing up in Vienna, Austria, and since he came from a Haimish Hasidic background, he wanted to go to a very good, prestigious Hasidic yeshiva. At that time, the top yeshiva that was a Hasidic yeshiva in the world was Yachel, Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin. Located in Lublin, Poland, it was headed by the saintly Rabbi Shapiro, who was an unbelievable person. He started not just the yeshiva, but the Daf Yomi, and also he started not only that, he was a parliament member of the Sejm, of the Polish parliament, and he was a very well-spoken, articulate man, wise beyond his years, but unfortunately he had no children. And he literally put all of his power into building an unbelievable yeshiva. To give you an idea how great this yeshiva was, when you would come in for the faher, for the test, you would get tested on half a shas. So the joke always was, when you sit across from the person for the faher, he said, which half do you want to be? You'd be like, the other one. But all joking aside, you got tested on 400 to 500 pages of Gemara. People literally, you could do the pin test, point it down in Gemara, say, Daf Yudal and Brachos Amud Alf, please tell me what I'm pointing to, what word. And people were able to answer that. So you're talking about very, very high level. Shmuel Vosner was a serious boy, but it seems like he didn't have the mental aptitude to be able to ace that test. And the story goes is that he failed miserably. He did very, very poorly on his test. And the story goes is that Rameir Shapiro turned to this Bachar and said, Shmuel, I'm really sorry, but unfortunately you're not for our yeshiva. You're a wonderful person, but I don't think this yeshiva is for you. He says, okay, I understand. I'm upset about it, but that's what the yeshiva decided. Okay, fine. A number of hours later, Rameir Shapiro happened to be walking through the yeshiva Beis Medrash, and lo and behold, he sees Shmuel Vosner sitting, learning with everyone else. He's literally learning at the table or at the stender where everyone else is. So Shmuel Vosner didn't know what to do. On the one hand, this Bachar kind of didn't get the hint. We did tell him he's not accepted, and here he's sitting here. Maybe he didn't understand. So Reb Meir Shapiro walked over to Shmuel Vosner and said to him, Shmuel, I'm really sorry, but perhaps he didn't understand what I was saying. You're not accepted in this yeshiva. He says, yeah, I know that. So why are you here? What are you doing? He says, well, my train back to Austria, to Vienna, is in another 4 or 5 hours. What am I going to do in the train station? I could just do nothing. I might as well just sit and learn. I still want to learn and at least review what I messed up on, because I actually want to know what I did wrong and rectify that for the future. Rameir said, if that's the case, you're accepted. Everyone was shocked. What? Him? He didn't have the mental fortitude to be able to withstand being in Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin, and Rameir Shapiro took him, and I have to tell you something. Reb Shmuel Vosner, without a doubt, is the quintessential Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin Talmud. He was the one that established, after World War II, a tremendous network of dayanim, great rabbis who were able to paskin halacha. If you want a psak halacha that's clear, not ambiguous, and they follow through, and they're Yarei Shemayim, people that fear Hashem and want to do the right thing, Reb Vosner's dayanim are the platinum standard throughout the world for how dayanim should conduct themselves. And he had a yeshiva, Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin, and he set up very high standards. And to this day, there are people who are unbelievable Talmidei Chachamim because of this one man. He was literally the man who kept up this idea of what Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin, although he didn't have the mental fortitude or the aptitude to be able to do it, but yet he had the desire. I'm going to sit down and say, I want this. When you say, I want this, and you take that step, Hashem says, okay, nasati lachem. I'll give it to you. You want it, so I'll give it to you. Here. Like they say from the Field of Dreams, if they make it, they will come. If they make it, they will come. It's true. You have to make it. You have to desire it. When you desire it, that cheshek, that desire, that that fire that you have inside of you, that you want to do it and you act on it, that is the difference between someone who's successful and someone who's not. Someone who talks a good game versus someone who does a good game. You want someone who wants to try their best. You try your best. You never know where that will land you. You have to at least try. There was a story, there was a young boy who was a Yassam. He lost his father, and he didn't really know his father that well. His father was Nifter, unfortunately, was taken from this world at a very young age. And this boy, he had to prepare himself for a test. And the story goes is that when the test came, the Rebbe knew for sure, this boy, there's no way he's going to be able to do well in this test. They figured, okay, he can't single out and give this boy a different test. He'll feel bad that, oh, I'm not like the regular boys. And he wasn't. Lo and behold, the Rebbe looks at the test and he can't believe it. He's looking at it and he goes, huh? Is this the same boy? He literally can't believe it. He goes, okay, all right. Answer after answer after answer. Clear. Rebbe realized maybe this Yosef, this poor orphan boy, he probably cheated off with somebody next to him. So he figured this is a life lesson. He needs to teach the boy that you should not cheat because that's a life skill. And if you do that when you're young, eventually you'll do that when you're older too. And you'll just get caught and you're going to be in bigger trouble. Small kids, small problems. Big kids, big problems. And it's not going to be easy to try to extricate yourself from that. So the Rebbe tells the boy, do you mind just staying a few minutes before you go out for recess? I won't take away for recess. You can stay a little later, but I want to speak to you. He says, oh, sure. The Rebbe goes over to the boy and says, I don't know if you realize it, but I got your test. He goes, yeah. He goes, your test, you answered fantastically well. He says, oh, okay, Baruch Hashem, good. He says, yeah, that's what I want to speak with you about. I'm not accusing you, just, you knew those answers? He says, yeah, I did. So the Rebbe, he says, do you mind then if I ask you a few questions? He says, sure. So the Rebbe put the paper face down. He goes, so tell me, the machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos, what's it? And the boy answered, whoa, he wasn't expecting that. This boy wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He goes, okay. What about, according to the Havamina of the Gemara, what would you say for the Maskana? And the boy answered it like he knew it. So the Rebbe was a little shocked. He's like, this boy never, ever did well on tests. And suddenly now he's killing it. He's answering so well. So the Rebbe couldn't contain his curiosity. He says, tell me, I'm making up his name. Tell me, David, how were you able to answer these questions so well? I don't recall in class that you knew them. He says, oh, my father taught them to me. He says, your what? He says, yeah, my father taught them to me. David, I don't understand what you're saying. When your father? You knew your father? Yeah, my father taught it to me last night. What are you talking about? How did he teach it to you last night? He said, well, Rabbi, I told my mother a week ago when you told us we were going to have this big bechina, this big test. I said to my mother that we're going to have it, and my mother burst out into tears, and she said, I can't do this. I wish Meir, her husband, his father, I wish Meir was here. He would study with you. I don't know Gemara. I can't afford for a tutor. What am I supposed to do? And she started crying. He says, I went to bed, and as I went to bed, I looked my eyes up to heaven. I said, Hashem, you're the father of Yisomim. You're the father of orphans. Please, Hashem, if anyone could teach me this Gemara, it's my father. That's what my mother just said. Can you please send my father and have him teach it to me? He says, Rabbi, my father came to me in a dream, and he told me, don't be afraid. The night before you get your test, I'll come to you and we'll learn the Gemara. And I said, but Abba, I don't know the Gemara. He says, don't worry. I spoke to Hashem. We got this covered. You're good. Everything's going to be great. He says, the whole week I was wondering what's going to be. I didn't get any dream, nothing. And lo and behold, exactly like my father promised, that night I had a dream. And in the dream, we were in this big base medrash. And every word my father explained, I actually understood what was going on. He went through the entire Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, Havamina, Maskana, everything. I literally knew what was going on. It was the first time I had such clarity, and I finally understood. And my father asked me, and I was going back and forth. So when I woke up, I knew I was going to ace this test. And when you came to me and told me how I did, I wasn't even surprised. I knew I was going to do well because my father taught it to me because I wanted to know. And that is the crux of this lesson. I am a taker. I want to know. When you want to know, Hashem sees your desire is real, He'll give it to you. He just wants to see, do you have that real desire? Otherwise, you're not going to appreciate it. Hashem gives it to you on a golden platter. You're like, okay, whatever. Hashem's like, no. You need to have that desire. If you don't have the desire, you don't appreciate it. Hashem says, I'm giving it to you. And I want to say more than that, just as addendum to this Zera Shimshon. Could be, maybe, the reason why it's specifically over here that we talk about when we give this idea of somehow you're gifting to the Mishkan, is because Mishkan comes from the expression of mashkain. It's collateral. It's not really yours. Hashem says, I'm gifting you this item called the Mishkan with the provisio that you understand that you have to treat it with respect. If you treat it with respect, you deserve it. You deserve to get this item. But chas v'shalom, if you don't, Hashem says, you know what, let me just take that back from you because you don't deserve to have that. I was telling a bunch of people very recently, one of the biggest slaps in the face that we ever got was during COVID when Hashem said, I don't need your tefillah here in Shul. You're going to come here and make a mockery of what's called tefillah. You're going to make a mockery of what's called learning, and you're going to not treat it with the proper respect. Do me a favor, just please stay at home. Don't come to my shul. Please don't come to my Mishkan. Don't come to my holy sanctuary. You're not treating it properly. I don't need you, please. Just do me a favor, just go home. And that's what Hashem says. It's a Mishkan, it's a Mashkan. It's collateral, where He says, I'm gifting you something. And a person has to know, as the great Rush Limbaugh used to say, we don't have a golden microphone here yet, Jonathan, right? But not yet. But when we do, we could say what the great Rush Limbaugh of blessed memory used to say. He said, behind this golden microphone is talent on loan. It's the same thing as well. You have to realize you have talent on loan. Whatever it may be. It could be wealth. It could be wealth and wisdom. It could be wealth and popularity. Wealth and good looks. Wealth and good health. It could be a wealth of many different things. If Hashem gifted you that item, it's a mashkan. It's collateral. He's gifting you that so you could excel where you need to, but all you need to do is ask and say, I am a taker. I want in. I want this. When a person says, I want this, Hashem will respond in spades and ultimately give you what you need. Just one more idea. In this week's parsha, in Parshas Truma, it tells us that Hashem says, it's more precious to me than kesef v'zav. When you give something, Torah is more precious than silver and gold. It's more precious than sadeh sukramim, fields and vineyards. It's more precious than even wisdom itself. Says Zera Shimshon, these three elements represent something very powerful. He says, when it comes to silver and gold, what does that mean? He says, this refers to the actual mitzvah that you do. When you do a mitzvah, you feel good. Just like you could touch and feel silver and gold, you can use that as transaction towards utilizing services or goods, and you're able to get a lot of comfort based on this tool called silver and gold. The same thing also, when you do an active mitzvah, you have an act that now will promote good life, healthy life, wealthy life. You'll have something in the next world, the world to come. You're going to have all these wonderful things. That's in asiya, in doing. He says when it comes to eon, he calls, which means that you place something in over time and contemplation, eventually something comes to fruition. He says that's the same thing when a person has a thought process. That's represented with sadeh sukramim, field and vineyard. When you plant something, cover it over, wait a little bit, germinate, let it cook a little bit, and then ultimately it will now be nisbashel. Literally, Chazal, in their beautiful expression, they say when something becomes ripe, it becomes nisbashel, it becomes bishul, it becomes fully cooked, because it's like something that is cooking inside. Some things take time for them to actually be able to proliferate and go forth. He says that's eon. He says the third thing is that of sod, that of the secret. He says the secret is the nun shari bina, the highest level that a person, a human being on planet Earth could reach. The only one that was able to reach that was Moshe Rabbeinu, when he literally had the horns of glory emanating from his skin, from his face. V'lo yada, he did not even know, because he was on such a high level that he didn't even realize how his face was shining. I don't know about you, but I've seen very, very holy people. You see their face shining. I'll never forget, I saw Rav Shach. I came into his study. He was sleeping. So remember, he walked in, he was sleeping. My father brought me in. Very grateful that he did that. Came into Rav Shach's study. Rav Shach was sitting there in front of an open Gemara, sleeping. You literally saw something hovering over his head. I'm telling you, in my life, I've seen that by a few people, but I saw that with him. You saw a very holy man. This is a holy person. You see that sometimes. And they don't even know that. Because the more you imbibe Torah, the more you have a Torah-dika life, a life full of spirituality, it affects the physical, that it literally changes it. And that's the idea of Truma and Torah. When you gift these items and you show total manifestation towards these things to Hashem, Hashem says, oh, you're on my team? Fine. Then you know what? I'm going to gift you something as well. And I'd like to share with you an idea from the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon tells us, and this is the idea too, tied into Torah, tied into everything. He says, we find something very interesting. When the Mishkan was constructed, after it came down for them to now produce the first Beis HaMikdash, the Mishkan was nignaz. It was dismantled and hidden. It did not get destroyed. First and second Beis HaMikdash did get destroyed. Why is that? Says the Vilna Gaon, because the Mishkan was given with absolute purity of heart. Every single screw, every single item that was accounted for, was given with the sole intent that we want to be Mekadosh Shem Shemayim. We want to make God's name beautiful in this world. We want to make God's name beautiful in the world. It has purity of heart. That will stay forever, ever, ever. It's just not going to go away. And therefore, no one can destroy it. Says the Vilna Gaon, you should know, if a person builds a house, they build a shul, they build any edifice that they may have, and every screw, every item that's produced in that property has no theft, has no bad thoughts, is of complete purity of speech and action and whatever it is that they have, all those things, they line up, impossible for the house to get destroyed. It's impossible. He says, you see that by the Mishkan. And why is that? Because like we're saying over here, when there's purity of action, there's purity of eon, of thought process, there's purity of the secrets, there's purity and it's all aligned properly, says Zar Shimshon, everything else will flow and this will be an indestructible force. Nothing can overtake that. And the longer you understand this idea, the more tapped in you are into spirituality, the more you're making this force field around you that Hashem himself is protecting you, and ultimately he's guiding you and your family and leading you to where you need to be. And I just like to conclude with a great story, a story that just goes to show you that you never ever know where things will lead you. And it's a story I just heard from the Archei Kala. I just got back from Eretz Yisrael, from Yerushalayim. Very grateful to Aguda. And most importantly, I'm grateful to my wife that she really pushed me to go. So thank you, Chailea. I do appreciate that. It was amazing. It was so, so phenomenal. And if you don't have an opportunity, you should make it your business to go to Archei Kala too. It really will lift up your spirits and bring you to reconnect and recharge yourself in such a serious way. So one of the Makidei Shurim, he said a great story. He said, it's a true story, by the way. He said that there was a story that there was someone, we'll call him Dov. So Dov had a very big business meeting he had to attend to. What was it? He was trying to procure a certain lot, and he needed to go to a certain bank because this bank was going to give him a fantastic rate on the money he needed to borrow. And he knew that if he would pay in cash to the potential seller, he would be able to get the property like that, and then he would be able to do a quick flip, and he'd make serious money. We're talking about millions of dollars. But the only thing was, he had to go to the bank to procure this loan. He cannot send a proxy. It had to be he himself who was going to personally sign off on this loan. So Dov gets in his car, he drives to the bank, and it happens to be, Dov lives in Eretz Yisrael, and the bank is an Israeli bank. So he's going through his mind how he's going to do the Heter Iska to be able to borrow the money in a proper way. There's a way to do that. And as he's going, fine, okay. Anyways, he gets to the bank and they say, I'm Mr. So-and-so. Oh, you're for the loan that is of a certain amount at this and this property? He said, yes. He said, okay, sir, you have to meet with the president of the bank because this is a serious loan. And we normally don't give for a loan of that size, that amount of a rate in terms of interest. And I don't think that's really possible. But if the president signs off on it, then we're going to give it to you. Okay, fine. He meets with the president. They have a very nice conversation. He's a frum Jew. The other person's a frum Jew. They're talking with one another, and they hit it off very nicely. Anyways, Dov is getting a little nervous because he needs to close the deal and get that rate and get the money in his hand and be able to wire it immediately to the seller so that way he can purchase the property. So he's going back and forth and back and forth. He needs to sign off. He needs to get the money very quickly. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. After 4 hours, Dov realizes that the negotiations and how he's doing it is getting very late. It's now in late afternoon. The bank is going to close soon, and he doesn't know if the other bank is able to wire the money on time. So he tells the bank president, he says, "Sir, I'm really sorry to do this to you. I know we have to sign up a few forms. I really do need the money." He says, yeah, we're finishing up over here. He says, "Yeah, I need the money, and then I need to run to the bank somewhere else to wire the money to be able to purchase the property." He says, "Okay, fine." So make a long story short, they're going back and forth. Suddenly, the president looks at his watch, or he looks at his clock, and he says, by the way, I don't know if you could do this or not, but we need 10 people for a minyan for mincha because somebody in this room is saying Kaddish for their father." And the guy, Dov goes, "I'm really sorry, but I really have to run." He's like, "Oh, okay, fine, I understand." He says, "Okay, whatever, maybe we'll finish early and you'll be able to run out, but the person can't leave and they need to be here in the bank and they need to say Kaddish. Is it okay if you stay just for a few minutes so the person can say Kaddish?" Dov's going back and forth and back and forth. And finally he says, "You know what? I'll do the right thing. If I get the money, I get the money. If I get the deal, I get the deal. If not, then obviously Hashem doesn't want me to." And with tremendous conviction, Dov turns to the president and says, "Okay, you know what? I'll stay." He says, "Really? You'll stay?" He says, Yeah, I'll stay." He says, "Yeah, but how are you going to get to the bank?" He says, "If I don't get it, I don't get it." So the president goes, "Wow, that's amazing." He goes, "Okay, all right." He says, "Just don't tell the guy that I'm making. I don't want to make him feel guilty that he's saying Kaddish for his father. I just want him to know that I'll be a part of the meeting, but I'll be a part of the meeting." Okay. Anyways, they sign off on all the papers. It's now past 5, and it's getting close to Shkia, and the president gets up. They shake their hands, and Dov realizes there's no way he's getting across town. He's here for the minyan now, and he said, "Okay, I'm not going to tell the person. I don't want to embarrass them." They go into another room in the bank, and they're waiting. One person walks in, second, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dov counts around. He's number 8. And then number 9 walks in, and they're looking around. Who's going to be number 10? He goes, "Okay, when number 10 walks in, who's the chazan? Are we going to say Kaddish?" He says, yeah, number 10 is the chazan, actually. He goes, "Oh, really? Okay, fine." He can't wait. And who walks in? The president of the bank. President of the bank is number 10, and he's saying Kaddish for his father. After he finished, Dov's mouth was still on the floor. And he goes, "Sir, why did you tell me that was you?" He said, "I wanted to see if you were an Erlich Yid and you would do it because it was the right thing to do. So not only are you going to get the loan, but I cut the rate. It's a quarter of what I offered you. You're a good man. And thank you for helping me get the minyan. I appreciate that." When you do for others and you're able to say, "You know what? I'm doing the right thing. Hashem, you're taking care of me." When you have the Maisa, the action that you do, rooted in Hashem, when you have the side, when you have the iyun, when you have the thought process behind, "I'm going to help out another Jew. What happens, happens. All right, Hashem's in charge." You have the side, you have the secret. Your face shines. The bank manager is number 10. And he sees that you're acting like a mensch. He says, "You know what? I'm going to do that to you." And I just want to end with a story. This literally happened to me. I remember one time when I was living in Denver, I had to give a shiur. I was running a little late and started driving how they drive in certain places, cutting people off, driving in and out, weaving in and out. And there was this one guy in front of me. He was going so slow. Like, the speed limit was 35. He was going 32. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm not going to zip in front of him. I'm not going to tail him. Hashem obviously wants me to come a little late. So I peeled a little bit back and I let the person go. Turns out that when I pulled into the parking lot, who pulls in the parking lot right beside me? This guy. Then I see the guy, takes a kippah, puts it on his head, puts the yarmulke on his head. He goes, "Oh, who are you?" I said, "I'm Yehoshua Sova." "Oh, you're Rabbi Sova. By the way, I'm the president of this and this group, and I'm looking forward to hearing your class. Rabbi, in the beginning you were a little aggressive, but thanks for easing off towards the end." So we made a little bit of a joke about that. I was thinking to myself, can you imagine if I would have done who knows what? Got into a road rage. No, Hashem, you're in charge. Once you understand Hashem, you're in charge, everything else goes. Now, it's not easy, but you have to recognize Hashem's got you. He's got you. And when you recognize that, you have Maisa, you have Iyun, you have Side. That's V'yichuli Truma. Hashem says you have that, You have my truma, you have my mishkan. This will stay forever. V'shoichanti b'soich kol echad ve'echad, Hashem says. You're inside every single one of you. I have the Shekhinah. We all have a mini mishkan inside all of us. We recognize that. Hashem will give us only bracha, only blessing in our lives. I thank you for listening. Have an awesome Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom to you all. And thank you once again for Radio Echad for having us here. We really appreciate it.